Hello and welcome to the British Chamber of Commerce Singapore's podcast channel. We're thrilled to present in-depth discussions on business, global affairs and news across Singapore, ASEAN and the United Kingdom. Thank you for your continued support and we hope you enjoy this episode. Hello and welcome to another episode of In Conversation with me, David Kelly, here at the British Chamber of Commerce here in Singapore. This is the channel where I get to meet some of the very best business leaders and community leaders across the network here in Singapore. And today is no exception. David Ingram, I'm so pleased that we've got the opportunity to sit down with each other and talk about you, the school. As the head of college here at Dulwich College, Singapore. It's brilliant to have you with us and sort of unpick some of your career and what the school's going to do. Dulwich has been an amazing partner of the British Chamber of Commerce, is a major part of the fabric here, both of the British, the international and the local landscape as well. So it's brilliant to have you here. And also you were the former founding head of the Dulwich College in Shanghai as well. So we'd love to unpick some of your story as well. So a very warm welcome to the British Chamber of Commerce.
David, great to be here.
Fantastic. So it's been a year since you've taken on the role as the head of college here in Singapore. Talk to us about some of those key lessons. What's your first year look like? What have you encountered in your first year?
This week we've had Year 6 performing Shakespearean. It's a romp through 3 Shakespeare plays, Macbeth, Twelfth Night and Romeo and Juliet.
Wow.
An amazing performance. And what really stands out about it, and I think this exemplifies my kind of experience this year, is that, yes, the acting is good, but they're also improvising. There's music being performed, which they composed, and they were dancing, and they were part of the choreography. So I think what stood out to me during the year is that all schools talk about a holistic curriculum, but it's taking it to the next level and looking at the students' ownership of the learning. And that's really come across loud and clear. Again, sitting with kind of senior school business students, pitching a business model. And there were 3 young men talking about an app they developed, which was about restricting access to kind of social media aimed at students. And one of the panel members, a business person, said, but do you know what, there's so many apps out there which gives parents control over their child's access to social media. And the student said, this isn't about parent control, it's about student agency. This is an app that we want students to download because they want to be able to manage their time. And again, I kind of share those examples because I think the year has been, for me, that journey of looking at the depth of that holistic experience and getting to know, what makes Dulwich Singapore different. Obviously, it's been a journey in getting to know people. So kind of building relationships with students, teachers, parents, and it's a large school and it takes a year to walk the walk and understand what makes, Dulwich College Singapore tick, but that's been an enjoyable challenge along the way. But I think particularly getting to know the students and the things that kind of make them thrive has been a real pleasure.
I mean, lots of people start a new role, right? But you've just highlighted you've got such a wide stakeholder group. How do you approach it on day one? What are the kind of the first sort of 1 or 2, 3 things that you do that sort of set you going forward in your new role here?
David, I think it starts before day one. So I was really lucky to have a fantastic lead-in. I was here the November before I started, the March and the May, and that was kind of building key relationships with the leadership team, parent leaders, board of trustees. And then, from day one, it's about large kind of presentations to teachers, then to parents, to students. But I think the most important relationship building happens outside the school at the beginning of the day when you're saying hello, good morning, well done for your football match last night, bad luck about that last goal. That's where the real relationships start. And I'm kind of working on that, spending time in classrooms. I'm a primary specialist, so I love going in and reading with the younger children. I've just kind of working my way through our year 1 classes. And again, that's a fantastic way to understand where they're coming from, getting to know them a little bit more, meeting student leaders, and again, kind of building the same kind of pattern of connection opportunities with kind of parents. So with our friends of Dulwich, with parent reps, and then kind of wider opportunities. But it's as often about being in the clock tower, being on the sideline, as it is in kind of formal meetings.
Obviously, we're in Singapore now. You've come from Shanghai as the sort of founding head for the college there. How did your international sort of career in education sort of take off? How did it all happen?
Yeah, well, I'm going to take a step back and I'm going to talk about how I went into teaching. Yeah, so I was originally a policeman. I was a copper, Bobby on the beat up in County Durham, and I decided kind of early on, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe this isn't bringing me the fulfillment that I'd like. I found myself locking up the same young people again and again and again, and that perplexed me. And I remember crystal clear being on a dawn raid to the house of a young lady who was suspected of harbouring stolen goods, potentially drugs. And we were there, and I have to say, on the police van, it's quite exciting. We're all there in our riot gear, beat down the door, all go in, and there are various people there. It is chaotic. And I was in the bedroom tearing through cupboards and drawers looking for the stolen goods. And what I did find was something that changed my life. And it was this young lady's school exercise books.
Really?
And in the middle of everything going, I remember going through these school exercise books, probably why I would never make a good policeman. And what became really clear is, you know, this young lady was bright, and this young lady had potential to make something of herself. This young lady clearly enjoyed her learning, but the reality was she was on her way to a police lockup and eventually prison. And I thought, right, I don't want to be locking up young people. I want to be unlocking their potential. And more or less after that particular experience, I put my application in for teacher training college. I was accepted. I left the police, and I haven't looked back. And really, it's all been about making a positive difference in the lives of young people. And that got me started in the UK. I'd been an expat child myself, so the step overseas was perhaps a natural one for me.
Okay.
But the same motivation about being a positive difference, creating opportunities for young people, is what drives me all the way through my career here in Asia. And then I think been fortunate to work at Alice Smith School in KL, Kellett School, Hong Kong, Tanglin here in Singapore, then found the school in Shanghai before moving here. The other thing that's really kind of excited me about working internationally is making an education relevant for the diverse communities that we served.
Yeah.
When I started in international education 25 years ago, really it was, can we make the school more British than Britain? And I was sat there thinking, I'm not sure this is relevant and the best thing for all the children in the class here. Even the British children were living in Asia, you know, and about making that education vibrant and relevant. And I think that's probably sustained my interest in kind of staying in the international sector.
Oh, fab. I love that. From sort of locking to unlocking is a great part of your journey. And you're the second college head here in Singapore. Obviously, we knew Nick and Magnus very well, your predecessor, and we know you know Nick really well. You've known each other for an awful long time. How do you take sort of what was built over the last 12 years to where it needs to sort of go to in the future, whilst bringing your own perspective? What can you sort of give us an insight into your mind around how you take what's already there and where you're trying to take the school?
Yeah, great question. And Nick's a legend, yeah. And so he was the reason I joined Dulwich. Oh. So it was through knowing Nick that made me curious about the Dulwich Group, really interested in being part of a family of schools. And after I was appointed as the founding head in Shanghai Puxi, Nick was my mentor. And we were here in Singapore. We met regularly. And, you know, I received the Dulwich law from Nick. And the success of the school in Shanghai was very much built on those conversations.
Okay.
So a real privilege and a thrill for me to come and build on Nick's legacy. Challenging, big shoes to fill. But ultimately, Nick believed in a school that was a community, that was Dulwich through and through, the house system, academic excellence, and that sense of fun in learning, that sense of fun in the community, and what he called the Dulwich difference. And sharing about Shakespeareans and our kind of young app designers would be an example of, this isn't just about learning, it's about building as an individual and growing as well. And that, for me, building on that essence is really important.
Oh, fantastic. And you're a big leader of a big school in a big community here. What is your leadership style?
Yeah, very much. It's about putting students first and, committed to making a positive difference. My mantra is getting better never stops. So that is reflective kind of culture that I want to embed, in our staff, in our students, kind of reflecting about, okay, this is great. How can we make it better? The situation's changed. How can we get better to improve things? So very much kind of driven on improvement. And I think parents expect that. Parents want a school that is, looking to the future, that is holding itself to the mirror and holding itself to account. Alongside that, I believe passionately in service learning. I think that's really important. Yeah, we live and serve a privileged community, in a privileged part of the world. So it's really important for me that we're grounded in, again, it comes back to making a positive difference. Founders Day, big celebration. You're welcome to come, June the 13th. For the first time, we're going to have a real focus on some of our community partnerships as a feature of that day. We have a group of students working on building an artificial coral reef using disused oyster shells from Singapore's Sunday brunches and Saturday brunches. But you can use those to recreate a marine ecosystem. We have partnership with an organization in kind of Cambodia, and these are kind of key developments that have happened this year. And it's about that element of service. So for me, as a leader, getting better never stops, but also being really grounded in what's important and thinking about the wider community, and the world around us.
I'll do my best to try and contribute to some of those oyster shells as well from the Saturday brunches. You highlighted, we do live in a very privileged position here, don't we? And I'm always amazed at how high performing Singapore is and how there is a lot of expectation on being successful in a very successful market. How do you think schools can help the future people of tomorrow to think about their well-being, think about their resilience, and think about their curiosity when it is such a fast-paced, competitive place here? How does the school sort of help cultivate that?
Look, it starts with relationships. One of the things I really believe in a school is that every child is known and celebrated as an individual, so that no matter the adversity, whether it's losing a football match, whether it's kind of working through a challenge, exams or a homework assignment, there's someone that they can turn to, or going to fall out with friends. So it starts with positive relationships, encouraging students to reach out for support. And then obviously a wellbeing curriculum that provides input on whether it's good mental health, good physical health, and creates, the diversity of experiences. I've got students who are doing exams at the moment, very high pressure. They're still playing this for the school in netball because they love it and it gives them the release. And, when they go off to university, when they're starting their first jobs, perhaps in a kind of a city on the other side of the world, they're going to need to work hard. But if they know, hey, I can look after what I eat, I'm gonna play football, or I'm gonna get involved in a choir, then it kind of brings them that kind of high level of fulfillment, and it's getting it right, And I think well-being is one of those things where you've always got to work on it.
Yeah.
But relationships, a really kind of thoughtful curriculum, and that breadth, that holistic education, which I'll come back to. And then I think it's important to listen. I've done a lot of listening in my first year, because that's the way to learn about a community. And I think creating an environment where students do feel listened to, when that happens, they're going to talk more and they're going to contribute more. And we kind of feel that's a big factor of kind of well-being at Dulwich.
Can I ask you a slightly controversial question? Channel News Asia had an article about, in some parts of Asia, there are students there who are maybe less hungry because they've got everything around them that they might have. Are you seeing that?
Yeah, funny you should say that. I'm aware of the article.
Yeah.
Today, I've just come from the speech day for Millennia Institute. So it's kind of a Singapore school that's opposite Dulwich College, and we have a wonderful partnership. I'm not seeing a lack of hunger. I felt real positive energy. Valedictorian who spoke about achievement, but also spoke about the importance of relationships and, giving back, where they had alumni speaking about their journey through exams to kind of being kind of law graduates, but then coming back and serving the community. So I think there's hunger here. I see that in our college. I see that in, our kind of partner schools in the neighborhood. I do think, however, our young people realize that won't sustain success, that if you are going to have sustained success, you do need to look after your well-being. You need to handle adversity, that pulling an all-nighter to ace your test isn't enough anymore. And kind of seeing that picture, being comfortable in who you are, being confident that you can adjust to a situation, you can adapt, is as important as just working flat out to get a good exam result.
How do you be unique as a student in today's world?
I think, look, uniqueness is about who you are, your identity, being comfortable in that.
Yeah.
There's an extent to which all students, I think, have to go through a curriculum, but providing them opportunities to take an area of interest to a higher level, to really encourage curiosity. Because if you're interested in something, that will begin to define who you are, to give opportunities to be creative. And I'm not just talking about art, and I love some of the conversations with our art students, but it could be that business group who I think, demonstrated real creativity. And I think it's those enrichment opportunities, as part of the holistic curriculum, which enables students to develop that unique story and to be proud of who they are, and I kind of think, talking to students, maybe who didn't get elected to be that head student or the house captain, but the next year take up a different role and are really successful on it, that initial setback is now part of their journey and becomes a talking point and a reference point when they're going for another role, perhaps future on. So I think it's encouraging that. That does come back, though, to relationships, doesn't it? Where I think you've got a mentor or a trusted adult who that student feels that they can connect with, and someone kind of looking out for them. And I think that's how schools can, help foster, a unique outlook and kind of a unique journey.
With the education landscape evolving so much, especially with digital tools and AI, how do you see these changes influencing the way that Dulwich as a college approaches teaching and learning more broadly for your students?
Look, ultimately at Dulwich, we believe the future is human, and technology is going to bring profound change.
Yeah.
Some challenge, we're experiencing that. Some opportunity, we're also experiencing that. But it's about how we empower and equip humans, our students and our teachers, to live, work, and kind of flourish with that technology. We've actually, a couple of weeks ago, we had Professor Rose Luckin from University College London here with us. She's got 30 years experience of researching AI in education, all of the Dulwich heads. And really, we're working on an AI critical thinking framework, which is empowering students, not just with the ability to use AI, but to understand what makes it work, questions of ethics, questions of well-being, if you're relying on a chatbot, sycophancy, hallucinations and the like, but also understanding cognitive offloading, or cognitive downloading, and kind of managing that.
Yeah.
Ultimately, we're aware that there are vested interests in kind of platforms selling AI. We also are aware that, harking back to the past, because it's more comfortable, isn't in setting our children up for success. The standout moment of that experience, with all due respect to the professors, was our student panel.
Really?
Yeah, and they were talking about how they're using AI, and they get it. They are using AI. They are using it to, and you talked about what makes you unique, to create unique learning opportunities for themselves. Right, this is my assignment. I'm struggling on part 3. Can you give me some strategies to develop that? And that's very different to, can you give me the answer? And they understand that there's an opportunity to use it to expedite what they're doing at the sacrifice of their learning. So I think, unlike other technology, I can think of interactive whiteboards, or bring your own device, where schools control the careful rollout of these kind of technology initiatives. AI is already happening. Students are using it, and they're using it well on the whole. But I think that, I'm going to keep coming back to relationships, isn't it? Where you've got trusting relationships, where you can talk about this. Our student leaders actually had a closed session with their younger peers to talk about, right, how are we using technology? Is there misuse? How's it helping or hurting your learning? And that's been amazing in informing the way in which we handle kind of technology as well.
So is AI in the classroom?
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. But age appropriate.
Okay.
That's kind of really important. And within our school system. So, we're working in an environment where obviously the systems we use are kind of guardrail. But the emphasis is much on this AI literacy, and kind of really kind of making sure that the students are understanding what it is they're working with, so that then they can make informed decisions.
Can I unpick and maybe sort of put a bit of a cheesy anecdote in, really, which is, if you're trying to get to base camp of Everest and you do all of the work, the previous form of education, right, where you had to be book smart, you had to work really hard, learn more. The more you read, the more you knew. The more you we were on this journey whereby you had to train to get to a certain destination. Whereas AI feels to me like you can get in a helicopter and be helicoptered somewhere to base camp, and then have your photo, and then sort of come home. So you can still get the experience at the end of it, but you've not done the learning and the journey to be able to get there.
Yeah, but I think that's exactly, and again, I'll come back to relationships and pedagogy and teachers, because done badly, AI can create that kind of artificial experience that you're talking about without the heavy duty. But imagine if you had a classroom, or imagine, okay, we'll give you 2 scenarios. So one is, here's an assignment, I want you to do it, you hand it in, I'm going to grade you on it. Right, if you were so inclined, you can go away that, helicopter to Everest. Or it could be, David, you're coming into class tomorrow, we're going to talk about the Russian Revolution. I'm going to be asking you what you know, and if you can talk through the causes and the impact. Okay, then, you could use AI to research, but you're doing the heavy, you're trudging on that long journey up the mountain because it's you.
Interesting.
And I think that's where the pedagogy comes in, and that's our teachers, but it's also the students, because they know. And again, it comes back to cognitive offloading. If they're just taking the helicopter, it's not going to help them with, the muscles and their stamina and everything like that. So I think there are kind of lots of ways of harnessing AI to make sure it is really kind of challenging. And look, there are lots of times where it screens away, we need to be out. You come to our restaurant at lunchtime, which is a happy place, you won't see devices, because students are talking, teachers are talking, there's a happy buzz. So technology is important. We need to be harnessing it. But, go to our forest school where our younger children are spending a week learning in the undergrowth and, discovering mini beasts and butterflies. And it's about achieving that balance and then seeing value in that, seeing value in, I'm a bit stressed, I'm not in the right place. Right. I'm going to go for a run, or I'm going for rugby training. I feel good because of that.
Yeah. No, really, really, really good balance. And yeah, thank you for unpicking that for me as well. So looking ahead, what's next for the college? What does the next chapter of Dulwich in Singapore look like?
Well, I'm going to start with a bit of a cheesy answer, but one which I really believe in is, there's going to be a lot of change in the world. And I kind of think of our toddlers or our nursery students. I'm trying to imagine, what's the world going to be like by the time they're graduating? And we need to prepare for that. But some things are not going to change. And when I kind of think about the next chapter of my leadership at the college, parents are still going to want their children to do well academically. We're really proud of our academic and the record, 37 IB average, third of the students getting 40 plus, 25 bilingual diplomas because we value language. Wow. That's not going to change. But what might change is we feel there's a place for an A-level pathway, starting with STEM subjects.
Great.
Because that works well for some of our students, and we want to create that more personalised pathway. So we believe in the IB diploma, but we're going to be adding another pathway. I think what else isn't going to change, parents want their child to be known, to have that sense of belonging. So the house system, which is student-led at our college, is still going to be a really important part of being something bigger, a kind of a Dulwich, to have those kind of personal opportunities. But what will change as part of that is we're really kind of cognizant of there's like information overload at the moment, right? How can we make the touch points and the connections between parents and teachers more personalized, more meaningful, and to kind of really kind of work at that, because I kind of think that's important. But there are exciting things that we're looking at. Our sister school in Switzerland, up in the mountains, we now have a Year 8 program where our Year 8 students have the opportunity to spend 6 weeks at our sister campus in Switzerland. You can ski down the mountain, literally into the back door. It is amazing. Wow. I am told the children learn something as well, as kind of part of it. But, there's a big focus on outdoor education, being unplugged. But this is what, and this is why, I love the Dulwich family of schools. It's not just about that experience with your classmates, but you'll also be there from Dulwich students from Korea, or it could be Shanghai, or it could be Beijing, or it could be Bangkok. And that network building, we've been talking about networks and the opportunities that come from knowing different people, adapting to different situations. And we just think that's going to be an exciting mix. So 6 times a year, we're going to be having Year 8 students doing a 6-week stint, enjoying everything that Switzerland has to offer and the outdoors and being really remote, but also that opportunity to make friendships, and kind of form bonds with a much wider range of Dulwich students from across the family.
Amazing. What an amazing alumni network for your students.
It's a privilege of my job when I'm with them in London or New York or the Greater Bay Area in China. Yeah. They are some remarkable young people, and they give back. In fact, only the other day we had an alumni in my office, and he works in the city now, but he's collaborating with other Dulwich graduates to create a kind of a tutoring and mentoring kind of business. And we're talking about, I would love, those students and their parents a little bit to be mentors for our younger students about, gosh, what does that journey look like, to get from year 7 through IB or through A-level into university to start in your first job.
Amazing. So we've talked about your career, we've talked about your international expansion, we've talked about a little bit about Shanghai, about tech, about where the school's going. When you close a door, when you get in on a Friday night, what do you do when you're not a leading educator here?
So I love nature. Okay. When I was a child, I was nicknamed Bellamy, David Bellamy, after the kind of the naturalist. So I love getting out in nature, Boogie Nature Reserve, the Green Corridor, Sungai Bola, Pulau Ubin. So that's my happy place. Where I'm somewhere green, that means a lot to me. When I have the opportunity, I'll go further afield. So at Easter, I'd been to the IB conference in Mumbai. And then I went to Assam in India to kind of one of the national parks there in search of the greater Indian rhino. Also saw tigers, and not just, go and experience that as a tourist, but then to meet some of the conservationists or the rangers who protect them. Because when I was a child, I can remember being, really depressed about all the rhinos are going to go extinct and why is it that people kill rhinos. But then to go to the community of like a group of people who used to poach rhinos and then are being kind of converted, but through business and through creating their own kind of entrepreneurial community, and how that's completely changed and no rhinos are being killed in that part of the national park, literally through that entrepreneurship platform. Or meeting a women's collective in an area where, when it floods and the animals kind of come in conflict with human, it's quite tough. But again, this ecotourism helps, and just getting to know some of those things, which kind of feeds into what I do, because that feeds into those real life experiences. Yeah. So that, anyway, the short answer is I love nature. Also love reading, voracious kind of reader to understand the world better, or reading for pleasure. So I take great joy in that. And I like to cook. So I love cooking for the people that are important to me.
Oh, fantastic. It's been so good to talk to you. It really has. And to sort of unpick your first sort of year here, there's a question we ask everybody on the podcast channel, which we've not sent through to you, which is, if we can give you the Chamber of Commerce's time machine, and we can take you back into a point of your life or your career where you wish at a younger David, you could give yourself that advice, where would you take yourself back to, and what advice would you give yourself at a younger age?
I would go back to myself as an 11-year-old, and I was at boarding school, and my family moved from the UK to America. It was quite a long time ago. That was quite a big deal. And for me, I just thought about losing my friendship, being in a very different environment. I went from being at a boarding school where I was known as Ingram, wearing a blazer, to Quaker Valley High, where I was in jeans and trainers and I was called Dave. And at the time, all I could think of is what I would be losing, what was unfamiliar, rather than seeing it as an opportunity. Like, it took me a while to really embrace that. And, if I could have that message to my younger self, but also to some of our students, that things may not work out the way you thought they would work out, but that's okay. It's what you make of it that is going to define you or going to make you.
Well, Mr. Ingram, David, it's been a brilliant conversation. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for all of your support. And we're here to support your journey as well. And it's great to see what you're doing with the college as well. So many congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of the British Chamber of Commerce Singapore's podcast channel. Before you go, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a rating and review on Spotify, Apple, Google, and other podcast platforms. If you enjoyed this episode, please spread the word by sharing it across your network. For more information about the Chamber and what we do, visit our website at www.britcham.org.sg and tune in next time for a brand new episode.